Daniel Naroditsky is undeniably one of the greatest speed chess players of all time. And although he can basically win with any opening, he does have his favorite openings which he uses time and time again for guaranteed success. So in the video today, we're going to be breaking down his top 5 favorite openings and ending the video with a surprise 6th favorite opening. I do want to quickly mention that today, all I will be doing is sharing with you the openings themselves and a very brief overview of the main ideas. But if you want a detailed explanation in any of these openings, guess what? I have made an in-depth, complete guide to every single opening that you will see in the video today. The link is in the description, so if one of these piques your curiosity, then definitely check out the full video. Without any further ado, you're watching the Chess Geek channel. We upload every other day, and let's jump straight in. I'm actually going to start by looking at his main responses as black. Against the move d4, Daniel Naroditsky has always been a King's Indian player and has enjoyed using this weapon to get very, very aggressive games. Now the King's Indian, if you're not aware, is the move knight to f6 here, and after c4, you fianchetto the bishop, you let white get a huge center, but in exchange you go d6 and are later going to poke at the center by means of e5 and c5. For example, the classical variation is knight f3, we castle, they go bishop e2, and here the move e5. And one of the main ways in which this position can develop is white eventually playing the move d5 and black basically going for a kingside expansion with f5, while white goes for a queenside assault by means of moves like b4 and a4 and c5. And so this becomes a really double-edged position, and there has been fascinating games. A very big one that comes to mind is Nakamura's win, where he sacrifices his queen 6 times. So this is a very exciting way to play with the black side, where you're definitely bound to get energetic and interesting games. As I said, I made a full in-depth video about this where we look at the ins and outs of every single line, the main theories, some example games, so definitely check it out if you want to employ this. So now let's take a look at e4. Now against the move e4, Daniel loves to play the Caro-Kann. In his speedrun videos, he has played this quite a lot with great success. Now the main idea of the Caro-Kann is to essentially go for the big expansion of d5. So rather than going e5 immediately and carving out some space in the center, you prolong it by first going c6 and preparing the very ambitious d5 move. Now, there's various different ways that this can go. After d4, d5, there is the fantasy variation. There is, the knight c3 variation, which often would lead to the Tartakower, which is a very fascinating and really fun way for black to get quick attacks on the king side. Now, because there's so many different variations, and because I personally love the Caro-Kann, I actually made a full masterclass for the Caro-Kann. So not only one video, it is a series of many videos, each one covering a very specific variation. So if you want to completely master the Caro-Kann, then I think that's a great resource for you. Now, I do, of course, have to mention one key huge distinction between the repertoire that Daniel likes to play and the one that I recommend in the masterclass, which is after the move e5 in the advanced variation, Daniel plays the most typical, the most mainline bishop f5, which is a great way to play. The bishop gets very active very early on, and once the bishop is out of the cage, you then want to go e6 and, secure your center. However, in my repertoire, and the recommendation that I always give is the move c5 here. This is a little less common, but it actually has quite a lot of merit. You go for a more quick assault on the center, and you're trying to carve out more space more quickly. Both are fascinating ways to play. I'd urge you to experiment and see what you like the most. And ladies and gentlemen, now that takes us to what Daniel Naroditsky plays with the white side. So we saw how he faces d4, we saw how he faces e4, but what does he actually play when he gets to begin the game? Well, he typically plays the move e4, and depending on what black plays here, he has a very specific opening repertoire. I do want to again emphasize he can play anything. I mean, he can play any variation of the Sicilian, any variation of the Ruy Lopez or the Italian, but there are openings which he has praised very vocally online and also played a lot in his career, and those are the ones that I'm sharing. So against the French, which is the first one that I'll start by looking at, he likes the Tarrasch, which is a very popular option. Again, I made a video about this. You basically play knight to d2 here to defend the pawn with the intention of keeping open the c3 square for your pawn to go ahead and support the d4 pawn. And so something like this could develop knight to f6, we push, We then go bishop d3, c5, and now we secure this center with c3, and we basically get a lot of good play on the king side with the white pieces. The knight often comes to f4, the other one to f3, and you basically get, a lot of play against these pawns, and you're trying to expose open the king side. It's a very fun, double-edged way to play. Black goes for an immediate attack on the center. We're trying to secure the center as much as possible while going for our own attacks on the king side. So now the question becomes, what happens after e4 and e5? What does Daniel like? Well, here he loves to play the Scotch. And again, he's said this many times on his speedruns. He plays knight f3, and after knight to c6, he either goes for the immediate d4, or he plays the 4-knight Scotch, which is knight to c3, knight to f6, and now a delayed d4. They're very similar in nature. The idea basically is to open up the center in a way that is advantageous for white, because if you were to take here, we'll notice that now if you take again, white is the only one that has any control over the center. And similarly, if you attack this, well, sure, we're going to defend. You can attack the knight again. We're going to defend. And once again, this pawn on e4 proves to be vital because white is the one that has clear control on the center. So that's sort of the idea. You do allow black to develop with some purpose, putting some pressure, but in exchange, you have clear control over the center of the board. So Scotch, a very popular opening. Obviously, it was featured as well in PogChamps, if you know what I'm talking about. That was a fun one as well. So definitely a very interesting one that you can use against e5. So that takes us now to c5, the Sicilian. And here, the recommendation that Daniel loves to play is one that I think is really good. Because the issue with just going for the main line, knight to f3, and then playing d4, is that, well, you're really giving black complete control on what they want to do. If they want, they can go for the dragon, they can go for the Najdorf, they could go for, any sort of Sicilian, and you have to learn a ton of theory. And so to avoid all of this, Daniel, from the beginning of his chess career, has always loved to play the Alapin with c3, where you immediately get initiative, you immediately get to control the way that the game will go. The idea is super straightforward. We're going for an immediate launch with d4, and once again, I made a video completely outlining all of the ideas for white and black. The main options are d5 and knight to f6. Now again, against both of these variations, our main idea is to eventually expand with d4. And so, for example, knight to f6, e5, knight to d5, and d4, or similarly, after the very quick d5, we're going to take first and then go d4. And the main downside of the Alapin is that this knight sometimes is hemmed in and it cannot easily develop. But the huge upside, of course, well, we get huge control, right? We have basically uncontested control, and that becomes really clear when you look at a variation like this where they take. We're the only one with a pawn in the center. And you already sort of saw this as well in the Scotch. And so you can see that Daniel loves positions where he has center control. And usually from those sort of positions, you can then gain initiatives and attacks. You're the one that has the possibilities to transform your extra space in the center into something that is more tangible, into something that will lead to a win. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the final surprise opening that I promised in the beginning of the video. Everything that I've shown with the white side so far has been e4. But the truth is, again, Daniel is super versatile and he can play various different openings. And so the other recommendation that I want to show is an alternative to e4. If that is not something appealing to you, if you don't want to play e4, maybe you've played it all your life and you're kind of getting sick of it, d4 is something that Daniel has played with great success, and within d4, he's especially liked the Jabava-London system, and that happens after d5, we go bishop to f4, they go knight to f6, and now knight to c3, the very unique move here, going for a quick attack. Again, I completely talked about this in the Jabava-London complete guide video, but the main points, as I mentioned, is to go for a quick attack, and therefore you're not going to get in c3 as early, but your center is still going to be okay, because if they try to simply attack your center, they're going to face some issues on this c7 square. A very fun, very aggressive way to play, and there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is the opening repertoire that Daniel Naroditsky uses to beat his opponents. As a reminder, every single opening that I mentioned in this video today has a complete dedicated video in the description if you wish to explore them further on your own. Thank you so much for watching. Like this video if you learned something new from it, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.